JT Tapias with the Empty Your Bucket Nutrition Plan, and today I have a subject that I know you are interested in. If you have been on a diet before, if you've lost a ton of weight and all of a sudden you just derailed a little bit and that weight came back on with a vengeance, I understand why you are frustrated. More importantly, you've probably lost hope. In this video, I'm going to speak with you about some tangible things that you can do so that you can lose the weight and never regain that weight back. Now, I know that sounds gimmicky. I know that sounds like a hook, but I promise I will deliver on this promise. So hear me out. One of the main reasons why people lose weight, gain weight, lose weight, gain weight is because they go on these fad diets, which I call sprint strategies, meaning that they are meant to get you to lose a ton of weight up front, but there's no sustainability phase because people are not being trained to become aware of a lot of different things we're going to be speaking about here today. So let's start off by establishing the fact that most people, and especially in America, have been on keto, Atkins, South Beach, macro counting, calorie counting, point counting, Whole30, you name it. Intermittent fasting is a big craze right now. Everyone is trying to do intermittent fasting because it makes sense that if you stop eating for an extended period of time, then maybe that way you will lose weight, because if you're not eating, then you're not consuming calories. If you're not consuming calories, then you're not gaining weight. I get that part. The challenge is most people are looking for a quick fix, and nothing beats awareness. And that's what we're going to speak about today in this video. And so if you've lost hope, I'm here to say that there is hope for you. And this is basically what I believe to be the most tangible way to lose weight and keep it off once and for all. And so one of the things that I think we need to acknowledge is the fact that our taste buds have been desensitized. Let me explain what that means. If you add salt, if you add condiments, if you add sauces, if you add fats to your food, you have become dependent on all of these flavors in order to be satisfied with your food. I hear it all the time from people that come on the program, and when we're trying to basically bring that sensitivity back to their taste buds and we take certain things out, people say, oh, my biggest struggle is that, you know, I've taken salt out. And that's not true. We don't take salt out completely because salt is in everything. But what they're saying is that they're not overwhelmed by those flavors, by all those yummy flavors that they're used to, salty, sugary, all those things that pack a ton of calories. And so you need to understand that we need to neutralize those taste buds again, right? We need to become sort of desensitized to the sugary things, the salty things, so that you can actually not bring in the calories, but more importantly, you start to understand something that most people have a really, really hard time understanding. And that is that there is a big, big, big difference between physical hunger and emotional hunger. Every time we eat, we secrete that chemical called dopamine. That neuroreceptor dopamine basically is very similar to any time that you secrete epinephrine, dopamine, serotonin, all these happy chemicals. And so what we're looking for more than anything, oftentimes when we eat, is really a burst of happiness through food. Maybe something is going on, maybe you're stressed out, maybe you're bored, maybe you're even happy, you're just around friends, you get excited and you're just eating and you're just consuming calories. And oftentimes you're not even physically hungry. What you're looking to do is actually fill a void, right? Or just deal with that emotion. Once again, whether it's happy, bored, you know, all these things that hit us at once. And what we're trying to deal with and mitigate is emotions more than actually fulfilling physical hunger. I can tell you that most of the time, I would say up to 95% of the time that we eat, it's out of emotional hunger more than actual physical. And so we need to start to understand the difference between those two. And in order to do that, you have to have a sequence. You have to have phases in the way you eat to desensitize, to become aware of physical versus emotional hunger. And that doesn't happen overnight. More importantly, even if you go for 6 months, you go for 3, you go for a year inside of a program, it takes a while for you to become desensitized to the flavors. It takes a while for you to understand physical hunger. And until that happens, you're going to be caught in this cycle of always going back. Hence the reason I'm not a big fan of the point counting systems to lose weight, like point counting, calorie counting, macro counting, because those things never really get you desensitized to those flavors. Those things never really teach you the difference between physical hunger and emotional hunger. Those things are simply interested in you counting a certain amount of points because they operate out of the idea calories in, calories out, which is partially true, but on top of that, what they're not aware of is that there is a dependency factor. And until we go into abstinence and put those things aside for a little bit, it's very hard for us to understand the difference between physical and emotional hunger. And so how do we do this, right? I love a concept that I recently learned about, and it's a Japanese concept called shu-ha-ri. Shu-ha-ri talks about the 3 phases of learning, right? Shu basically says that we have a coach, we have a mentor, we have a guide, and we obey. I know that word is hard. We obey that mentor to the T. We don't derail from what the coach says. We simply do what the coach says, which in part is something we talk to our members about. In order for you to really get the most and really take advantage of what we have to offer, you have to be ready in your heart of hearts. And when you're ready in your heart of hearts, you're ready to obey. You're ready to follow the guidelines without derailing at all, at least for 6 to 8 weeks. So shu is a difficult part because we have to fight against our intentions to do whatever we want to do. So we just commit to that coach. We trust that coach. We obey that coach, right? We stick to every single thing that coach has to say. And then we can transition into ha, which ha is you can now start to break loose from that mentor, from that coach, from that guide. And now what you're actually doing is you're starting to really come into the next part, which is ri. Ri is when you break away from that coach's style, because now you have become aware of your physical hunger versus emotional hunger. Your taste buds have been desensitized to all those rich flavors. And now you can actually start making some very powerful decisions in the way you actually eat. And so you start to develop your style of eating inside of the shu-ha-ri, right? So ri is the last phase in where you're actually coming into yourself. You're learning these things. You're developing your own style. And this is where the famous word that oftentimes people try to skip through all of these phases and get to it initially. And it's that very sort of great marketing word, intuitive eating, right? There's a program out there, there's videos, there's people talking about intuitive eating, but you can't get to intuitive eating until you understand physical hunger versus emotional hunger, until you desensitize your taste buds. And intuitive eating says that you basically only eat when you're hungry. Well, the problem is we don't understand the difference, and until we do that, we're gonna be caught in this perpetual cycle. And so when we get to ri and we start to develop our own style, we can now start practicing intuitive eating. We can start to minimize portions, right? Because now we understand, and you're like, I'm full, I'm physically hungry, I don't need to eat anymore. I don't need to feel an emotion anymore, right? You start to, you're able to say no to certain things. You're able to stop at a certain point, right? You don't have to eat the entire plate. Maybe this is when you get to the restaurant and you simply ask the waiter, even before you start eating, to bring a box, and you take half of the food home if you end at a restaurant, right? You learn basically how to portion your meals, which ultimately, if you're eating less, then you're gaining less, or you're sustaining where you currently are. And then of course, the ability to say no, which is so important for us humans, because we have a tendency to overcommit. We have a tendency to overcommit to calories. We have a tendency to overcommit to responsibilities. We overcommit to even our, how long we stay up, how long we watch TV. We have a very hard time simply saying no and doing the thing that we know is going to benefit us the most. We develop an awareness inside of this phase, this ri phase, where we can understand that instead of having the whole bag of chips, we can maybe have a couple of chips and then put it aside, right? As a matter of fact, when you sensitize your taste buds again, you taste those things and they taste salty. You take 1 or 2 or 3 and you're just like, it's too rich, and you put it aside, and you can just put it aside without having to exert all of this energy, all of this discipline, and all of the self-control. And then lastly, you don't get caught up in the moments, right? I hear people do this all the time with food. It's like, I'm going on a holiday, I'm going on a cruise. What am I gonna do? I wanna enjoy myself. Well, the truth is that if you've learned the difference between physical hunger and emotional hunger, you have sensitized your taste buds again. You start to see the progress. You feel great. You're sleeping better. You're breathing better. Your cognitive processes are better. You have better retention. You have the ability to be mentally acute all the time, and you just love the way you feel. It doesn't matter where everywhere you go. You don't get caught up in the moment. You don't get caught up in the holiday, vacation, weekend, or peer pressure. You just start to show up like a different person because you love who you are. You've heard the saying that if you go on a vacation and you're itching to get back home, then you're most likely doing things right? You don't have to go on a vacation because your life is a vacation, right? You enjoy being in your own body. You like the way you feel. You like the way you perform. And based on that, you've created an identity around this because you have come into an awareness, and that those 3 phases of shu, ha, ri are so important. I love that Japanese concept. Remember that shu basically is obeying your coach, following the program to a T. Ha talks about starting to break away and starting to develop your own style as you start to develop an awareness of physical hunger versus emotional hunger. You sensitize your taste buds again so that you understand how much and when and how to eat, and you can actually put aside the things that don't serve you anymore. And then of course Ri, which is developing that own style of eating, that intuitive eating. And because now you become aware of all these things, now you can actually put things aside without having to be the most disciplined person in the world. Guys, today we spoke about how to lose weight and keep it off. Ultimately, what we're speaking about here is an awareness around food, an awareness around your taste buds, an awareness around your appetite. And until you master these things, my friend, you're just gonna go in circles. And so my advice to you is, yes, you can do this on your own all day long, but there's nothing more powerful than hiring a coach, someone that can take you through these phases, can explain to you what's happening when you don't have an awareness of these things yet, and can refocus you, channel that energy in the direction that's gonna bring the biggest return on investment. And you're gonna see massive, massive returns on investment. You're not gonna deal with this yo-yo dieting thing. You're gonna put it aside. You're gonna love the way you look and feel, and you're never gonna go back to the weight you were before. I hope you've enjoyed this video. My name is JT Tapias with the Empty Your Bucket Nutrition Plan. If you enjoyed this video, you're gonna love this one here. I'll talk to you guys soon. Ciao, ciao.